I walked toward it slowly, my body refusing to listen to my fear. The door was slightly open. I pushed it and stepped inside. Someone was standing in the middle of the room. Hi, friends, my name is Vandana, and you are listening to today's story Last Night on the Mountain. I had come alone. The villagers were polite but distant, and almost everyone asked me the same question in a tone that did not feel casual at all. Will you stay here after sunset? I laughed it off and said yes, thinking it was just another local superstition meant to scare outsiders. That evening, the mountain looked unreal, covered in mist, glowing faintly in the last light. I remember thinking it was the most beautiful place I had ever seen. I also remember noticing that no one else was outside. Every door was shut. The silence was complete. That should have been my first warning. Around midnight, I woke up without knowing why. The room was cold, much colder than it should have been. And there was a strange pressure in the air, like something was standing too close to me. I stayed still, listening, trying to understand what had woken me. That's when I heard my name. It wasn't loud, it did not echo. It came from far away but felt very clear, as if it had been spoken right next to my ear. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then it came again. Slightly longer this time, stretched in a way that did not sound human. I got up and walked to the window. Outside, there was only fog, thick and unmoving, covering everything. But as I stared into it, I noticed a shape forming. Slowly, a figure became visible, standing at a distance, not moving, just watching the house. I could not see its face, but I knew it was looking at me. Then it raised its arm and pointed toward the mountain. I do not know why, but I felt something shift inside me at that moment. Not fear, not curiosity, but something stronger, like a pull. I stepped back, closed the curtain, and told myself I was imagining things. Eventually, I forced myself to sleep. The next morning, I went to a small shop near the edge of the village and casually mentioned what I had seen. The old man behind the counter did not react the way I expected. He did not laugh. Instead, he became very still and asked me quietly, "Did it call your name?" When I said yes, he looked at me in a way that made my chest tighten. "You should leave today." I asked him what he meant, but he did not explain. He just kept repeating that I needed to go. Something in his voice unsettled me, but not enough to make me leave. I told myself I was not the kind of person who runs away from shadows. That was my mistake. By afternoon, I had made up my mind to climb the mountain. I wanted to prove to myself that there was nothing there, that fear only exists if you let it. The villagers noticed when I started walking toward the trail, and a few of them tried to stop me. One woman grabbed my arm and said, "If it has called you, it already knows you." I pulled away and kept walking. The climb started normally. The path was narrow but manageable, and the view was breathtaking. But after a while, things started to feel wrong. The wind stopped completely, the air became still, and there were no sound at all. No birds, no insects, nothing. Even my footsteps seemed quieter than they should have been. About halfway up, I found something that made me pause. A backpack lying beside the trail. It looked old and covered in dirt. A few steps ahead, there were bones scattered across the ground. Human bones, clean and arranged in a way that did not feel natural. The skull was cracked open, and inside it were small stones packed tightly together, as if someone had filled it on purpose. I felt a sudden urge to leave, but before I could turn back, I heard something behind me. Footsteps. I turned around. Someone was standing on the path. At first, I thought it was just another trekker, but then I noticed the way they stood, slightly tilted, like their body couldn't hold itself properly. It looked like my grandmother. She had been dead for years. Her eyes were open, but there was no life in them. Her mouth started to open slowly, stretching wider and wider until I heard a soft crack, like something breaking. When she spoke, the voice was hers, but distorted, as if it was being pulled from somewhere deep and hollow. "Come back," she said. I did not wait. I turned and ran. I ran without looking back, without thinking, just trying to get away from whatever I had seen. The fog growing thicker around me until I couldn't see more than a few steps ahead. At some point, I slipped and fell hard, sliding down a slope and hitting the ground with enough force to knock the air out of me. When I opened my eyes, it was almost dark. I was no longer on the path. I was standing in front of an opening in the mountain. It looked like a cave, but something about it felt wrong, like it was not just an empty space. The shape of it resembled a mouth, and the darkness inside seemed deeper than it should have been. From within, I heard voices, many voices. Some were crying, some whispering, some calling out names. I froze when I realized one of those voices sounded exactly like mine. I should have left, but I did not. I stepped inside. The air was cold and damp, and the smell was unbearable. As my eyes adjusted, I saw shapes along the walls. At first, I thought they were rocks, but then I realized they were people. Bodies were embedded into the stone, as if the mountain had started to swallow them but never finished. Their faces were frozen in expressions of fear, their mouths open as if they had been screaming. Some of them looked old, some young, and all of them had their eyes open, watching. One of them blinked. I stumbled back, my heart racing, as the whispers grew louder. The faces began to move slightly, their lips trembling as if they were trying to speak. The voices overlapped, filling the cave with a sound that was impossible to understand but impossible to ignore. Then I saw her, my grandmother. She was part of the wall, her body fused into the stone up to her chest. Unlike the others, her eyes were filled with something real. Fear. "Run," she whispered. Before I could react, the ground beneath me shifted. The walls of the cave seemed to pulse like something alive was breathing around me. A deep, slow sound echoed through the space, not loud but powerful enough to felt in my chest. It was a heartbeat. The mountain was not just a place. It was something alive, Hands began to emerge from the stone floor, grey and lifeless, reaching for me. They grabbed my legs, pulling me down with surprising strength. I struggled, kicking and clawing at the ground, but more hands appeared, dragging me closer to the floor. I thought it was over. Then I remembered her voice. Run! I forced myself toward I forced myself forward, tearing free from their grip and scrambling toward a narrow opening above. I climbed without thinking, I ignoring the pain, the cold, the sound of those voices behind me. When I finally got out, it was night. A storm had begun, lightning flashing across the sky. In those brief moments of light, I saw figures standing all over the mountain, scattered across the slopes. They weren't moving, just standing there watching. All of them were facing me. I ran down as fast as I could, barely able to see where I was going. When I reached the village, something felt wrong immediately. There were no lights, no sounds. Every house was empty. It was as if everyone had disappeared. Then I heard knocking, coming from my house. I walked toward it slowly, my body refusing to listen to my fear. The door was slightly open. I pushed it and stepped inside. Someone was standing in the middle of the room. It was me. Same face, same clothes. But the expression was wrong. It was smiling. You came back, it said. I felt something behind me, a presence so large. It did not feel like it belonged inside the house. I turned slowly and saw the wall moving, the surface shifting as if something massive was pressing against it from the other side. And I began to form in the darkness, watching, hungry. I tried to move, but I couldn't. The last thing I remember is waking up in my bed the next morning. Sunlight coming through the window, everything looking normal again. For a moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. Then I realized I couldn't move. My body felt heavy, cold. I looked down and saw stones spreading across my skin, slowly hardening, climbing upward inch by inch. Panic set in, but I couldn't even scream. The door opened. The couple walked in, laughing, talking about how the place looked. Then they saw me. The man tilted his head and said, "That's a strange statue." I tried to blink, to move, to do anything. I couldn't. As they moved closer, I heard it again, from outside. A voice calling a name, not mine this time. Hers, in her own voice. And somewhere deep beneath the ground, I felt it. A slow, steady heartbeat, still alive, still waiting. And now it had found someone else.